Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AI Minute Mondays. I'm your host, Sachi, and joining me today is Saptak Sen, who's my co founder at oikyo.ai. And today we have a hot new topic that we're going to talk about. It's fine tuning your AI models, yay or nay. But before we begin, Saptak, can you share a little bit about your journey?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Suchi. Um, so, as you know, my journey started long time back. That's uh, at Microsoft in Bombay. That's the first time we met each other, a couple of decades back, and we were in the same team, kind of a forward deployed engineering team. Uh, and we had a lot of fun in terms of working with some of the really murky projects. We were the single throat to choke, so to say. uh, but since then, I was at Microsoft for a very long time at various teams, mainly focused on Windows Server, Windows HPC Server, SQL Server, then Azure HD Insight. That got me into a startup. When I started working with Azure HD Insight, I started working at Hortonworks. I was first 15 employees, and we grew to about 1,500 employees post IPO. So it was a lot of fun. Also, then understanding how startups grow, coming from Microsoft. That led me back into AWS. And again, AWS was a lot of fun because I landed up in the containers team at AWS. And this was before EKS was launched, the Kubernetes service was launched. So I got to experience and participate in the launch of EKS, which is a fantastically, you know, fast growing service and product. So got to experience that firsthand, how to scale from 0 to 10 billion in 2 years. That was an amazing ride. Then I again itched back to get into a startup. I went to a service mesh company, Tetrate, was there for 4 years. Again, uh, very scrappy team to start with, grew the business there, and that brought me to Oikyo.
Thank you, Saptak, for sharing your background. And yes, it's been a great journey with Oikyo so far, and we have many more interesting times ahead. So, looking forward to that. But coming to the topic at hand, fine tuning our AI models, right? So, what exactly is fine tuning? Why is it necessary? And how is it different from using a regular model and training it from scratch?
So when a model is trained, it comes with certain weights and biases, right? So fine tuning essentially means that you are tweaking some of those weights and biases to teach the model maybe a new style. Maybe you want to improve performance on a specific task, or if you want to kind of uh, uh, customize it and make sure it has some consistent output, so it's not getting off track uh, with the broad set of knowledge, right? So those are the you know reasons that you'd fine tune existing model.
Thank you, Saptak. So, like you said, we fine tune the models so that they get a more consistent style, more consistent tone, and also they are in sync with your business and understand your business context and relevance
Hmm.
much better.
Right.
So, but there's also the school of thought that RAG or retrieval augmented generation, where you basically connect your AI model to an external backend source, which could be your organization's knowledge base or something else. And there's a whole school of thought that this is sufficient in itself. So, what are the pros and cons of using fine tuning? Where is fine tuning better? Where is RAG better? So, let's talk a little bit about that.
So RAGs is obviously very useful, specifically for our existing model. if you wanted to look up current information after the cutoff date of when this model was trained in the first place, uh, that's when you'd use RAG, right? But what RAG cannot do is say improve a performance on a specific task, or have a specific persona for the model, right? Or those are the things which you cannot achieve with RAG. Um, of course, RAG is great if you want to, say, reduce hallucinations. You almost are double checking your response by looking up the current information from a database or another data source. Uh, and it can also improve, say, transparency by actually citing the sources, which you cannot achieve by tuning, right? Or from the base model itself. So those are the, those are very complementary, but you'd have to know uh, which to use for what effect you want.
Yeah, thank you. That's definitely very helpful. So, like you said, I think RAG also adds some more latency because not only does the model have to generate your responses, there's this additional overhead where it has to go through the retrieval pipeline and pick up data from your external data source or wherever you're connected to. So, if latency is important, again, fine tuning is probably a better solution. But, like you said, it's all dependent on context. And the way I understand from your explanation is that with fine tuning, your model itself is able to understand your business context, while with RAG, it comes after the fact.
That's
So,
right.
yeah. So, again, there are lots of pros and cons to each approach, and maybe even a hybrid approach is best where you can fine tune and you can use RAG.
Of course.
Uh, yeah. So, coming down to the data that we need for fine tuning, right? What amount of data is actually enough data? Is it like 1,000 rows or 10,000 rows? How much data do you think is enough for fine tuning? What's the kind of data that we actually need for fine tuning? And how would organizations go about preparing this? Could they use some existing data sets that they have and leverage those? So, yeah, some thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, so again, the absolute quantity of data is very, very subjective in terms of what you're trying to do. But typically, first and foremost is it's it needs to be dependable and clean data. That is key. Means as the old adage goes, garbage in, garbage out. You don't want to throw uh, data which is either not topical for this fine tuning or which has a lot of noise into the into your training job, which essentially can degrade the performance and the quality of output for your models. So that's key. The other thing is that you need to also splice the data for both the training and then the testing and the eval part of it. So that's you need to keep enough data for you to be able to do that, right? And so those are the, I think, top level guidelines, and also the kind of data you need will vastly depend on what kind of training that you want to do, right? For example, if you want to, um, do text generation, right? Obviously, you need to provide in uh, more text, free form text data that you are training on. There are other kind of training that you want to do and task that you want to do. Your data will be very, very task specific.
Thank you, Saptak. That's super helpful. Like you said, quality trumps quantity. So if you have good quality data, I think that's great and that's sufficient. So, and like you mentioned, cleansing the data is super critical. Even for example, let's say if I have some PII information in my data, definitely that's something I'd want to cleanse out before
Absolutely.
I add it to my fine tuning job. So coming now to the pitfalls of fine tuning, right? We've spoken about all the great stuff that fine tuning does, But let's talk about when an organization wants to go ahead and fine tune their AI model. What are the key things that they have to keep in mind, and what are the pitfalls to avoid? And just so that for our listeners, when they're going ahead with their fine tuning their AI models, that they keep these things in mind.
Yeah, so uh, there are some key things to keep in mind. First of all, what kind of model are you trying to fine tune, right? For example, with reasoning models, you have to be very careful. If you are doing fine tuning with that, if you are not careful, that you can have catastrophic forgetting, which basically means that it even forgets about the uh, uh, basic facts that it was trained in the first place with, right? And then, of course, there are other aspects to keep in mind, things like overfitting, bias amplification, and of course, data inaccuracy can also can lead to a wildly inaccurate response, as we discussed.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, the bias amplification, I think that's a super critical area as well. Because if you have bias in the data set, if you have exclusion of a particular segment or category, then that gets totally amplified in the responses. And that's definitely something to watch out for. So thank you for sharing these inputs. I hope our viewers have got the clear-cut response to our question. That's fine-tuning yay or nay. And I think it's a definite yay. So thank you, Saptak, for joining in. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and we look forward to sharing more information in future episodes.
Thank you so much, Suchi, for this opportunity.
Thanks. Bye.